In the previous episode of the 1991 Marin Bolinas build, we sorted out some areas of the bike that were rusty and needed attention, and gave them a lick of touch-up paint. We then removed all the scratches, polished, cleaned and prepared the frame for the final build, which is coming now. I'm going to start this build by installing the chain set. First thing I need to know is the size of this bottom bracket shell, if it's 68 or 73 millimeters. 68 in this case, which means we need to use 5 millimeters of spacers on the bottom bracket to make it a proper mountain bike width. 68 is generally used for a road. Then I'm installing this nuke-proof bottom bracket. It's a GXP one that you may have seen me use before on my Kotick Beefy Max build, link up above. I'm going to be using this bike for commuting, and it's likely to get left out in the rain, so I want to make sure everything's super greased up in the bottom bracket to protect it as much as possible. And yeah, there's the spacer for the 5mm offset in total. So yeah, just wind that in, super greasy, make it easier to come out and give the bike longer life and longevity. Hopefully it will never get stuck in a frame with that much grease. Just using the normal bottom bracket tool here to cinch it up nice and tight. The chain set we're fitting to this bike is a SRAM X1 from 2016 or 17. It's fitted with a 34 to 12 speed 6mm offset SRAM Eagle chainring. This combo of bottom bracket and chainring gives us a 49mm chain line, which is perfectly matched with a 135 rear axle, an old school one, which is perfect for this build. For the drivetrain, we're going to be using a Microshift Advent X drivetrain. This is the first time I've tried this drivetrain, so I have no experience of it prior. I bought this on Wiggle for a criminally cheap amount. I think the derailleur was about £30, the cassette was about £15, and the shifter was about £15, so it was just around the £60 mark for the drivetrain, which was such a big bargain I couldn't leave it on the shelf. The cassette is also from Microshift. It's a 10-speed 11 to 48 tooth and fits a standard Shimano HG free hub body. And everything about this group set being black really complements the build, I think. So we're going for that fluoro yellow and black look. Here I'm just torquing it up, 40 Newton meters, so it's quite a high torque for cassettes, so not to forget. The wheels I'm fitting are only a temporary solution. They offer specialised rock hopper. They're black Mavic rims, 212s I think, so nothing special, quite heavily worn. They've got Shimano hub at the rear and a specialised stout hub at the front, which has a weird quick release, but they're only temporary for now, so something better will go on eventually. I'm a fan of SRAM chains, especially at the lower end of the market. I think they're probably superior to most and made in Portugal. A minor concern of mine is that because we're using such a wide range cassette on this bike, we might not have enough chain links with 114. Usually for an Eagle chain there's 118 links, but I think this chain at 114 links is actually perfectly sized without having to cut it for this bike, funnily enough. So it's a word of caution there. If you're using this Advent X, you might need to have a longer chain if you're on a full suspension bike. I couldn't make my mind up about handlebars for this bike. Option 1 is the standard stem and handlebars. I like this setup, but I wasn't keen on having the canty-like roller on the stem there because I'm intending to use V-brakes. Option 2 was these wide riser bars and short stem, Thompson stem and race face bars. I wasn't super keen on this, but I thought it looked pretty cool. And option 3 was to keep using the same bars but put a more modern cross-country stem on it, and this is the option I ended up going for. The bars weren't in a super great condition, so they got the same polishing treatment that the rest of the frame did. And because this is an older style bike, I've had to use a quill stem adapter fitted to the A headset style stem on this bike. This is a mix of old and new technologies. Well, A headset's not new anymore, it's 30 years old at least. But yeah, it came out in the mid-90s. So we've got a quill stem adapter going into this black stem. So I greased it up really well because I don't want any sort of galvanic corrosion going down there, because if it gets wet outside, it's still aluminium, don't mix well. Because we're using a modern stem on these old bars, I'm having to put a shim between the two to get it to fit correctly. The shim adapts the bars from 25.4 to the 31.8 of the stem. One kind of neat feature about this bike is the bars had the original Marin bar stops on them, so I want to try to retain those if I can. The brake levers I'm going for are these Avid FR5s. These are a classic brake lever these days, and one of the few good options available for a decent price. I think these are about £15. Most importantly, they're black for this build. I tend to like to set up my brake levers for one finger braking, so that's me measuring the brake lever length from the edge of the bars because I know what I like, and then I match it on the other side. At this stage, I'm only loosely securing all the controls because I'll probably end up tweaking their position relative to the ground, the angles and stuff, when the bike's on the floor. The grips I'm going for are these super cheap foamy ones from Decathlon. I liked them on the FSR build. I'm securing these to the bars using some of the finest hairspray I could get from Lidl's. The brakes I'm going to use on this build are some Shimano Alivio brakes, and that's for two reasons. They're quite cheap, easily available, and they're black, so it matches the sort of build theme. Another nice feature is that the Shimano brakes come with a fresh set of bolts, which are black in this case, as the old bolts that come off the brakes were hex heads and looked really old fashioned, so yeah, this is a nice upgrade. With all the key components installed, we can now concentrate on cabling up the bike. With the rear gear cable installed, I can then tune up the rear mech. Actually didn't really require too much tuning, to be honest. It was nearly perfect, very easily. 10 speeds are generally a lot easier to tune than 11 and 12 speeds, but I also think the real simple and clean gear routing on this bike aids a lot, so there's a lot less cable drag. And yeah, it tuned in really nicely and really fast, and the shifts feel pretty good, to be fair, for a cheap group set. I've been becoming a bit of a fan of using some cable liner on long exposed sections of cable that are likely to scratch the frame, like here on the top tube. It's an old-fashioned method, but it seems to really preserve the paint really well. I wasn't super happy with the way the brakes felt using the middle hole on the bicycle frame for spring tension. The spring tension felt a little too light for my liking, so I then removed the brakes once again and put them in the higher position hole, the one closest to the top, to get the maximum spring tension out of the brakes. And this felt really nice at the levers. I'm not sure why this was, to be honest. Maybe the front and rear brakes in Shimano have different spring rate efforts. Maybe I'm diving into this too deep, but yeah, by switching it to the upper hole, the lever effort felt more matched to the front and everything worked better and it had a more snappier feel. So yeah, bit of fine tuning here. The pedals that I'm fitting, for now at least, are some Superstar Nano pedals. I've had these quite a long time and they're out of my parts bin, but they match the build because they're black and they look pretty cool, I think. So yeah, we'll go for these for now. With everything else on the build being black, I just can't leave a silver seat post on it, so I've got this black seat post from ETC. So I went crazy with the grease, lubed it up really good and proper because I don't want to get it stuck in the frame, and make it easier for any future owners of the bike. I'm not selling it, but yeah, just thinking into the future, future-proofing it. Yeah, greased it up and stuck it in. Didn't want to cut it short or anything like that. So yeah, make sure it's very greasy and stuck it into the frame. And as cool as the original Marin saddle is, I don't want to commute on that for 40 kilometers per day. So I've got this WTB Pure, which is kind of a period correct look-ish. It's like a mid-90s look, I think, WTB saddles. But it's all black. It was quite affordable and cheap, and it matches the build really well, I think. And I had a good history with WTB saddles. I've got this old school looking Elite bottle cage for the bike that I'm going to fit. It's black with a couple of chrome accents, but I'm not completely sold on it for the bike, to be honest. I'm just going to install it for now and see how I feel about it when seeing the bike whole and completed. I had to get a new quick release seat binder for this bike, as the standard Marin one was just too rusted away for me, really. I picked up these from Amazon and they were £4.50 for two, which is absolutely ridiculous, but it'll work and I have a spare. And after standing back looking at the bike, I really didn't like the looks of this bottle cage with the whole mix of the look, so off it comes and I'll find a matte black bottle cage for the bike in the future. Before we can take this bike out for a spin, we need to remove all the packaging grease off of the chain and then lube it up. I'm going to be using some Juicy Lubes chain lube wax. This is my first time using this, so I'll let you know how it goes. Look pretty decent, so I'm going to use this on this bike and for the summer. I'm very OCD about lubing my chain. I like to apply a single drop of lube to each roller as on the chain length and let it soak in for an hour or two and wipe off the excess, and I think this is the perfect way to lube a chain. The final thing to do is a quick bolt torque check and we're ready to ride a bike. So there you have it, that's the build of this bike. Let me know what you think in the comments. As for the riding impressions, I think it rides really good. It's kind of like a heavy muted ride. The bike's quite heavy. I would have guessed about 30 pounds or 15 kilos. It's like an old steel comfortable ride. Doesn't accelerate particularly fast or spiritedly, but once it gets going it's like a massive steamroller. It really wants to hold its speed well. The Maxxis DTH tyres are perfect for what I want. This bike is going to be a bit of a commuting on cycle lanes, so there's going to be some mixed surface potentially involved. A mountain bike's perfect for this. Actually, a road bike isn't particularly good for one of the routes I have planned to get to work. So here I am, just mucking around, trying to pop some wheelies. I can't really wheelie to save my life. In the end I just get frustrated and just do a huge big fat skid, but I just thought I'd do it for the camera. I'd like to have gone off-road and found some really cool spots for you to take some more videos, but anybody that's lived in the UK this March knows it's been like the second wettest March on record, and all the trails are going to be absolutely swamping around my way, like nearly impassable. So I've kind of limited myself to this like gravel path around this new build housing estate by where I live. It's good for filming, but I'd rather be in the woods somewhere proper, make the paint pop against some dark background. But this is what we got. This is like the first sunny rideable day in a month outside, so yeah, terrible weather in UK. Overall, I'm still really happy with the bike. Like I say, I'm going to use this bike for sort of commuting to and from one of the offices I work in sort of West Oxfordshire. I'm actually considering turning this bike into an e-bike as well, so that's something to look out for in the future. I'm considering buying one of those switch kits. I think it would look cool, and this would be a good potential donor for a switch kit bike, I think. Considering that, but it's quite expensive, about £700. So generally really happy with this bike, especially considering it costs like 40 or 50 quid, and I think it's turned out and turned into something really nice and special that I'm really happy with. Only thing I might do if I'm commuting is put a bigger chainring on, or maybe a new chain set. But yeah, that's about where we're at. So I'll leave you with that. Only last thing I want to do is there's some really cool graffiti down by me by the MES Graffiti crew, or MES Graffiti crew. So I thought I'd show some of that off with a bike next to it. So yeah, this piece here I thought was absolutely awesome. There's a bit of a Ex Machina feel to it. So I took a couple of pictures with the bike next to that, and there's this other one with sort of an Aquaman and a big tentacle, which I thought looked pretty neat. So I didn't know where to fit those in the video, but yeah, I like it, so let's go in at the end here. So yeah, thanks for watching along with this build. I've got a rock hopper coming on next, then I've got a old Cannondale Killer V, which is one from Seinfeld's. It's Seinfeld's other bike, so I might do a little play on that sort of setting for that video. And then there's a Saracen coming up in probably by the summer, by the end of this. Then I'm on the lookout for a few more Cannondales. I really want a Beast of the East and a Super V, so there's like top of my list really. And an M2, Specialized M2, I want to get one of those. So yeah, thanks for watching this series, and I'll be back with you very soon. I'll keep uploading some shorts and bits and pieces of the rock hopper build, because it's not for me, that's for my niece. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.